And hello there, everyone. Welcome to another episode of QC Brief. We're here with Michael Forian. We hope you're doing well by now. We assume that you know what this is. This is the podcast that comes twice a week, Monday, Thursday, gives you a quick little brief of everything that's going on through the campaign. We give you a nice little brief analysis based on our experience. We'll cut the little intro short so we can get to our topics because, I don't know about you, Michael, but first of all, how are you? Good morning.
Good morning. It's good. It's crisp. It's fresh over here in Gatineau, Quebec.
Oh, I was in Gatineau yesterday. I was interviewing.
You came all the way to Gatineau. You didn't give me a heads up. You didn't even.
I came in. I had no idea. I had no idea where I was. God, it's far.
Yeah. Listen, I do Gatineau, so you don't have to. It's much better that way.
Jesus. I don't know about you. I don't know about the campaigns that you did. I always knew, and I always used to have this conversation with the volunteers, but mostly with, the core team there, the organizing team. Be vigilant towards the end of the first week or during the second week, closer to the third week of the campaign. That's where journalists usually try to derail the campaign. They have been collecting different things from different candidates. They have the research department having already done the job. Just be careful. And that's exactly what's happening. We're in the second week of this campaign. The amount of blunders that I don't know if they will derail the campaign, but it's definitely enough for something to stick over here for whatever party to kind of hold on to kind of point fingers to, or whatever you want to call it. We're going to get through that because we talked about that in the very first episode. Let's hold on to see what's going to happen, how this campaign might get derailed, what the candidates might or might not say. And this week, it just appears that it all just happened together. They all decided, let's go. This is the week where we're all going to say our bullshit, and we're going to talk about that.
Yeah, and it's. I think that a lot of journalists, I mean, they're out there hunting for some scoops, and of course, you also have the political parties looking for dirt on their opponents too. From what I recall, there's a certain unit within the Quebec Liberal Party known as the Dirt Squad, where the team of researchers, a crackpot team of researchers, would go out.
We always called them the fishermen.
The fishermen. I like that term too. Yeah. I think they really liked using Dirt Squad for some reason.
Dirt Squad.
In any case, I know a few people that were on it or are considered honorary members in any case. Yeah. And they would, especially with the advent of social media, with Facebook, Twitter, with all of these social media networks where people are just constantly posting ridiculous things, and from 10, 15 years back, not thinking that today, they would have been presenting.
I'm a public figure now. I'm a
public figure, or at least presenting themselves as a candidate, right? Yeah. Whether or not they are running in a viable seat for their party or a non-viable seat for their party, you're still representing the party brand. You're representing the party institution, and obviously you're representing the leader.
That's right.
And you need to be on your best behavior. But journalists know that the person who you are today is maybe not the same as the person you were 10 years ago. And that could be detrimental to the campaign, especially if there were comments of, racism, really nasty stuff that's out there, or just simply embarrassing photos too. Which come back to haunt you.
It's incredible to see how it all came down this week. And we're going to start with the Liberal Party. I mean, there's a candidate in the riding of Laurier Dorion. I should know something about that riding. A brand new candidate. He's much more Anglo. And they dug up something that he said a couple years ago on the legitimacy of Quebec to wanting to change its constitution so that they can mark that it constitutes a distinct nation, and that French is the official language. So he came out, he wrote something, I think, on the Gazette or in the Suburban. In the Suburban, that it doesn't have the legitimacy, and that he had some things to say about Bill 101 and protecting the French language. These things never sit well. I mean, in Quebec, if you're running in politics, there's kind of like a what do you call it? Like a ground rule.
Well, it's the third rail of politics, right? In Quebec, it's some, you don't touch it with a 15-foot pole.
Yeah. you don't touch the language. French is the official language. Quebec is a distinct nation. This seems to be like the groundwork. Like this is whatever party you're running with, you got to know this. Like you cannot contest that, and I don't disagree with that. I mean, I do believe that we make up a distinct nation in Canada. I don't think we should be separate from Canada, and I do believe that French is the main language here, and I think it should be protected. I mean, these are standard things, you know.
Right, and there's a few things that we have to unpack here first. So this is Deepak Awasthi and Laurier Dorion. This, of course, for people who are joining us for the first time, this is a riding that George ran in. You carried the Liberal Party banner in 2018. You did a commendable job. You did a fantastic job, actually, on the ground.
Thank you.
And things didn't work out the way that we obviously wanted them to work out, but you did a major campaign for the party, and you were one of I think the most highlighted campaigns in Quebec, just with your presence on the ground and Laurier Dorion being as central as it is to in the island of Montreal. So kudos to you for that. This time around, however, the candidate's Deepak Awasthi, and when you're conflating Bill 101 and Bill 21. This is not going to go down well for you. I can understand, going after Bill 21, which I think that most English-speaking Quebecers understand, allophones understand that it's a bad law. Bill 101, I think we've gone way past the last exit to modifying or changing it. It's established in Quebec. Whether you personally disagree with it or agree with it, it's not going to go anywhere. And again, people don't touch this. On the question of recognizing Quebec as a nation, this candidate in particular had opposition to it. I remind people that Stephen Harper recognized Quebec as a nation in the House of Commons. Justin Trudeau recognizes Quebec as a nation. This is it's not up for debate. When the two major political parties federally recognize Quebec and its place within Canada, we're not going to go any further in terms of taking that away from them. So my point being is that what this really comes down to, these are embarrassing comments for the leader, a leader who's already looked upon, Dominic Anglade looked upon as somebody who doesn't care about French Quebec or seems to coddle Anglo-Quebec to such a degree that Francophones feel that is as if she doesn't have any emotion or understanding of Quebec outside of Montreal or outside the greater Montreal area, and has a disconnect with people in the regions. And what we really need to be pointing the finger at is the vetting process. And every major political party has a vetting team, a vetting committee that will look at candidates and evaluates, going through their social media history, doing a criminal background check, looking at their credit, doing a credit check, understanding, is there anything that could come up that could be detrimental from a public relations standpoint to our campaign? And if something does come up in that process, do we green light them or do we red light them from going on?
Yeah.
And this was obvious. If it was done terribly. This is somebody should be fired immediately.
I don't think it was done at all. I mean, no. When you look at the fact that they didn't have candidates they hadn't completed their 125 candidates till the end of the first week of the campaign, right. And even then they just had to, we spoke about this, they had to throw people, and their husbands and their wives and anyone they could find, just so they can get, put that embarrassment behind them. For sure, the vetting process wasn't done appropriately. I mean, to be honest here, and to give her credit, Dominique Anglade came out the morning this article came out. She clarified her position. I know that she spoke directly with the candidate, and she said that, listen, I spoke to him, we're aligned, he agrees with us. I mean, look.
But do you believe that? I don't believe he is. I believe he was given a talking to, and he was told, you shut up. You don't say anything more about this throughout the campaign.
This is our position. Do you understand it? Yes or no? Yes, I understand it. Perfect. That's it. It's over. Hang up. Look, it's what you said, right? I mean, these are emotions. These are things that come up at a certain time, and you're asked to comment on them, and you're not thinking at that point in time that you're going to be running in the campaign or that you're going to be in the public eye, right? I mean, and if you do, these are important things to maybe mention. Hey, by the way, guys, I did, this and this in this article, or,
right.
So anyway, I mean, luckily for them, it hasn't stuck that much. It took up maybe, I don't know, an hour, last week or this week in the morning. So it didn't occupy that much of the news. I think they got away with that one pretty. They were pretty lucky with that one. Another one, however, that might stick is the Conservative Party of Quebec. The leader, Éric Duhem, who a couple of days ago, he was campaigning in an English riding, and he was asked about his position on separation. Now, he did mention that right now, absolutely not. He would vote against the independence of Quebec because he sees that it's not something that people are preoccupied by. But eventually, the door is open. I mean, maybe later. He left a question mark over there.
Right.
And that one stuck.
Yeah, I think it stuck. It played a little bit in. I mean, this all spurred from the a Québécois article, a TVA Nouvelle article that came out, and their headline was definitely a lot more intense than some of the other ones I saw.
The headline was heavy compared to the text.
It was indépendance, c'est non maintenant, mais peut-être oui plus tard, dit Duhaime. Independence, it's no right now, but maybe later on, says Conservative Party leader Éric Duhaime. And I think that the way, and it's funny how some of his supporters, especially in the Anglosphere of Quebec, have really been acting like contortionists trying to defend his policy on this, because, of course, as Anglophones, they're adamant federalists, and of course, him saying this completely takes away from their credibility in Anglo ridings like Jacques Cartier or Darcy McGee or Westmount St. Louis or whatever. Where, again, I don't think that the Conservatives have any hope of chance in winning any of those ridings. But again, it does take away from their credibility because there are some, high-profile candidates or some candidates have gotten some media attention in those ridings. But again, it looks pretty bad. And I think it's important just to go over some of the stuff that he said. He said that he wanted to assure that future generations, if they change their views, would have the option to have a referendum. I don't care what your, sort of asterisk is next to your position when it comes to a referendum question. This is not good. Saying that this will not bode well with any Anglo community across Quebec when you say, oh, well, I want to make sure there's an option to keep it open just in case if they figure out down the road, they're potentially thinking at the back of their mind, and they say maybe whatever, it's going to come down to it. No. Yes or no. Anglos want to hear yes or no. They want to hear a direct answer.
But also, Michael, independence, the issue of independence isn't a flavor of the month kind of thing.
It's not. No one cares this. But Duhaime is a former PQ staffer. He's a former Bloc Québécois advisor. This is somebody who has not just flirted with separatism. It's not somebody who's just flirted with independence movements.
Oh, he's
actively been engaged in it. Yeah. He's worked for these political parties, George.
Yeah. And again, I understand where he's taking it. He wants to give the impression that we're here to represent the people's will and the voice of the people. And if ever anything changes, we got to be there to make sure that we give them what they want. But it's not, like I said, it's not like, oh, today I want a popsicle. Let's have a popsicle. Tomorrow I want an apple. That's not what it is. This is the independence. You're either for separating or you're not. It can't be a flavor of the month kind of issue. So I don't know where this is going. I know the Liberals jumped on this like crazy, especially in the Anglophone ridings. And it's just funny that this statement came while he's campaigning in an English riding. I'm speechless. I don't understand the relation between the two. I don't understand why he would do that.
There's no way this wasn't an embarrassing comment for his Anglo candidates. There's no way that, and of course, like he has candidates that are running with him that are former péquistes, former Bloc Québécois activists. It makes sense. Duhaime is trying to build a conservative coalition. He's trying to build a coalition of conservatives coming from, social conservatism to fiscal conservatism to libertarians, and also conservatives that were used to be part of the independentist movement. And it makes sense that, he would want to perhaps use some messaging. But I personally believe this is a viewpoint that he believes in.
Oh, yeah.
I think that these comments truly reflect his own personal opinion and his opinion in how he would govern if he were ever to become premier. Now, of course, he's never going to become premier. But my point being is that this is still important for people to understand. And if people, for them, if the ballot box question, which I think it's less and less, but if the ballot box question for them is a question of separation, and I think for many Anglo or the prospect of a referendum, I think that only skews towards older Anglophones of a certain age.
Mm.
This is a complete write-off. But older Anglophones of a certain age who are, disaffected and feel completely disengaged with the PLQ have been looking at Eric Duhem as an option. They've been wanting to hear more of him. They said, I want to hear him when he's on CJAD. I want to listen to him I want to watch him when he's on CTV Montreal. I want to hear what he has to say because I'm looking for an alternative this time around. And a lot of Anglos have come to me and said they've never, ever voted for a conservative party in their life.
Mm.
And this time they want to give Duhem at least a chance during the campaign to make his appeal, make his positions known, and then they're going to make up their minds. But this is not helping.
No. We'll keep the best one for last, but I want to go to Quebec Solidaire. This happened yesterday. The entire day was taken up by this. They made an announcement. The CAC jumped right on it and called it the orange tax. Basically, Quebec Solidaire announced that they want to tax 0.1% people's net assets. So we're talking not only your income tax here. This is your entire valuation, if you want. So we're talking about your property, your asset value, your investments, your pension plan, anything that you have that adds to your asset, minus, of course, your expenses. So everything that comes in minus everything that goes out, whatever's left over. If it's over $1 million, you're getting taxed 0.1%. Now, a lot of people are saying, look, 0.1% on $1 million, $1,000, it's not the end of the world. However, the thing that bothers is that when they talk about the ultra rich, we're going to go tax the 5% ultra rich, and they put in that category people that have a net asset value of $1 million. For me, it makes absolutely no sense. And all the analysts that came out to talk about this are 100% right. Having $1 million of asset value, you're not ultra rich. You can have that by making like a $60,000 salary. You bought a house maybe 10 years ago. By the time you get your retirement, that house might be valued at $700,000-800,000 plus with a pension that you've put aside. You're probably worth $1 million by the time that you retire. And then when you retire, they're going to come and take out $1,000. And there's a big issue here. I think this is going to stick a little bit more throughout the campaign. They have a hard time explaining where they come up with a 5% of the population, because how do you know? How do you analyze the people's property value, the investment value? Like, how do you calculate all that, right? And I think it's going to stick.
I think this is where Quebec Solidaire loses credibility, and they walk into this bear trap of, they've been largely unscathed throughout the early campaign thus far. We're very early on, and so far they've been pretty good, but now we see that they're tripping on their own policy, and instead of getting the coverage that they were hoping they deserved, they're getting the coverage that they fretted, and definitely their advisors were having nightmares of. This is not just including. We're also forgetting the fact that this would also be there would be a 35% tax on inheritance, for worth $1 million or more. And inheritance taxes have, you have to go back to the United States to look at people like Grover Norquist, who labeled things like inheritance tax death taxes, and was very effective in terms of his messaging. But that would also mean, and I think I'm glad I have to give it to her because she had the best response to taxes of this nature. She called wealth and inheritance taxes an attack on Quebec's farmers. And she did this while standing in front of a combine harvester during a campaign visit in just south of Montreal. And she said, it was good because she said the harvester was valued at over $1 million itself. And I feel that I'm happy that she had at least one good day on the campaign trail. But my point being is that image right there, that image, and point to it and say that alone is going to cause problem for the family that owns this farm. that's going to be a detriment to Quebecers in this community, in this region, across Quebec, who rely on this farm. And the imaging there was perfect in terms of being able to get that message across. And you think about the younger generation too, that are less likely to want to continue farming, that are more likely to want to sell off their assets, sell off their farm to a larger company, to a conglomerate, and say, you know what, here it is. I'm out of this. I want to go work in the city. I want to go live in the city, and I don't want to be doing this anymore, even though my family's been doing it for generations and generations. It sends a message, and it's a really good story to tell. I think QS really dropped the ball on this. It takes away credibility from their platform. They tripped up on their own policy, and they didn't need to propose this. They didn't need, when they talk about higher taxes, they could have gone after les paradis fiscaux, Panama Papers. They could have gone after so many different things that people want governments to act on.
But you know what, Michael?
Governments to attack.
Even if you want to keep this structure, I don't know, say $5 million, say $10 million, whatever. I don't know. It would make a little bit more sense, right? But to think that the ultra rich are every person is every person that has a net asset value.
There's a big disconnect right there.
It's a huge, and look, Gabriel Nadeau-Dubois is an excellent communicator. I saw one of his rallies there. He walked into some committee. I can't remember where he was. And he said, listen, this is a united front against us. And the reason for that is because what we're saying matters. They're afraid of us, and they're going to spin it that way, right? And his message was exactly what you said. Everyone else is disconnected. They don't understand the reality. They don't understand that the ultra rich have these types of assets and the rest of the population doesn't. And I find that is disconnected.
Yeah.
And I think it's the opposite.
Yeah. And the thing is too, is that there's also a high cost for jurisdictions to administer taxes like this.
How is that going to happen every single year? Can you imagine the public service burden on people having every single year to look at what you earned, look at your investments, look at the return on those investments, look at your property value? Like
you would need another revenue Quebec. You would need another revenue agency.
Jesus, yeah.
And of the 11 members of the OECD that had been doing it, and it was these are wealthy nations, of course. Of those 11, only 5 now continue it. So it goes to show that it's ineffective. Governments, by and large, don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah. And I think, look, Quebec Solidaire with this proposition, I think what they did is they drew a line in the sand and said, this is what distinguishes us from the other parties. And I think they're pretty much saying you're either on this side of the line or on that side. And it's a clear indication of who they are, what they believe in. And I think, they're going after that younger generation that is afraid that we might never own a property, or we may never, have investments, or whatever the mindset is. They're going
after. Of course, but like you said before, for some parents, when they pass on, the only wealth that they will be giving to their kids is that house. The only thing that they've invested in for sure is that house.
I've been strolling through Twitter, and the amount of tweets I find of random people that are saying, I just switched my vote from QS to PQ. It's incredible. It's incredible. Anyway,
huge fumble.
Yeah, we'll see how that carries on, but I have a feeling that might stick. The one blunder I think that is going to probably stick until the end of the campaign is the comments that Premier Legault made the other day, yesterday actually.
Les Québécois sont pacifiques. Hein? Ils n'aiment pas la chicane, ils n'aiment pas les extrémistes, ils n'aiment pas la violence. Donc, il faut s'assurer qu'on garde ça comme c'est là actuellement.
Linking immigration to violence, to maybe even racism. I mean, definitely it's the most xenophobic thing that I have heard. His opponents were quick to jump on that. Tell everyone a little bit about that.
Yeah, and he was making these comments yesterday at a press conference. He was trying to make a link between immigrants and violence and extremists. Those were Legault's words. These are not my words. And they drew a really intense reaction from a lot of his opponents. But more just going back to him, he had to apologize for what he said.
Yeah.
He said that he didn't want to associate immigration with violence. You know, he said, "I'm sorry if my words have been confusing. I didn't try to." And then he tried to pivot and say, "But you know, immigration's an asset for Quebec, and we need to get those immigrants to integrate. And integration will always be a challenge for a French-speaking nation, North America." As much as he was apologizing, I'm you know, we know what he said. We know what he said. You know, he said Quebecers are peaceful. And what does that imply? It implies that immigrants are not.
Yeah.
Quebecers don't like bickering. And he implies that, well, immigrants are going to talk back and they're going to raise their hands and they're going to say, okay, well, these are some things that I like and I don't like. And they're going to have a voice.
Yeah.
Quebecers don't like extremists. Immigrants are.
I honestly, you know, I had to read that statement several times. I'm like, okay, maybe it wasn't written prop, but you know, journalists are very careful when they say stuff like that. I mean, the quotes they put, it's the exact. It was incredible, and it brought me back to the time when the Liberals were in government and they were talking about immigration again and the numbers of immigrants that should come into Quebec or not. And I remember back in the day, Premier Couillard criticizing Legault, who was in opposition, and he said exactly, you know, Monsieur le Président, le chef de l'opposition souffle sur les braises de l'intolérance. You know, he's walking, you know, on a thin line, basically, right? And there was this storm of criticism towards Legault, towards Couillard. How dare you? You're calling him a racist, blah, 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 blah. It just brought me back to that, because what I also remember in 2018 was Legault struggling to explain the process of immigration. I just do not think that Legault fully understands how immigration works in Quebec.
No, I think he understands the system. I think he understands the complexity of the system that it currently is, because it's a very complex system, and somebody's had to deal with it in terms of helping people navigate through that system. I think he knows exactly what he said. And when you say you know, Quebecers don't like violence, and you're talking about immigration, you're implying that immigrants are violent.
Yeah.
And then when you say you have to make sure you keep Quebec the way it is, you're implying that they're going to make Quebec violent. They're going to make Quebec. They're coming. Extremists are coming in. They're going to disrupt things and make things no longer peaceful. And you're talking about immigrants, and that in itself is disgusting. I think that I think he's going to have some struggles with some people in the greater Montreal area that are francophones, that are CAQ leaning, that are sort of like, you know, geez, I voted for the Liberals time and time again. My father and mother have done it. My grandparents have done it. And this time they're looking at CAQ as a viable alternative. And they're looking, you know, at the PLQ sort of floundering on the ground. They're going to start questioning that lean to the CAQ right now with that. But I don't think that what Legault said was by mistake. Mm-hmm. I do feel that he was speaking to his base in the regions. Right. I do think that he believes in those comments, and I do believe that it's going to help him in the regions.
Right. Do you think that it's enough to kind of destabilize his campaign or derail it? Obviously not in the regions, but you're right. No. Probably in the big metropolitan areas.
And this is the thing that this is the big thing that we need to take into consideration, is the fact that he's not talking to Montreal. Mm. He's not even talking to the greater area of Montreal, the greater metropolitan area. He's talking to his base, which is in that 200-kilometer corridor in and around the Quebec City region. You know, the Estrie, the Beauce, the Lanaudière, the Laurentians. I mean, this is where he's speaking to directly. And he's taking pot shots at Montreal, like he's done in the first Radio-Canada debates, right. Interview debate. Montreal has always been a target. So this type of language where he's shitting all over immigrants, par for the course for the kind of dialogue that he wants to have with his base.
Interesting. Let's move on. Before we wrap it up, let's move on to some polls that you looked into, some key ridings that we had mentioned, particularly in Montreal, around Montreal, and, you know, some in the regions. things are starting to move. I'm not sure if they're going to maintain if they're gonna maintain themselves that way until the end. But we got some close races.
Right, and particularly like in the island of Montreal in itself. And I think one of the ones that we do have to look at would be Verdun, where Isabelle Mélenchon is running for re-election. She was a POQ staffer. She was a POQ chief of staff at one point. He ran in a by-election in Verdun when the late Jacques Dehout resigned from politics during the Couillard era, and she won in that by-election. She ultimately became Minister of Environment. And right now, we aren't even seeing a three-way race in Verdun. There was an ECOS poll that was done. And now, I remind you, this was an independent poll that was done on behalf of Québec Solidaire.
Right.
So when you hear independence, know that it was commissioned by a political party,
right? And
the results were favorable towards that party. So you have to take it with maybe a mountain of salt or two. 32% for Québec Solidaire, 26% CAQ, 21% Liberal, 13% PQ, and 4% Conservative Party.
Yeah.
When there's a 32 to 21 split between the frontrunner QS and Liberals in third place at 21, that is sending a huge message right there. And that is a seat that was considered a Liberal bastion. Yes, you take the campaign seriously there because there are some voter tendencies to go to QS, some voter tendencies to go to the Parti Québécois. But we were pretty certain of being able to retain Verdun as a solid seat for us.
Yeah. The other one that I looked at is the actual riding of Dominique Anglade in Saint-Henri-Sainte-Anne, where it's just neck and neck. It's a three-way race over there.
28, 28, 26. So CAQ 28, PLQ 28, and the QS at 26. It is a three-way race. I'm surprised that the Québec Solidaire hasn't commissioned a poll in that race. And it is the president of Québec Solidaire that is running in that riding there in Saint-Henri-Sainte-Anne against Dominique Anglade. And it's a relatively young candidate for the CAQ, Nicolas Huard Isabelle, who, I've had a few interactions with over the course of my years in politics. Good young man. He's making a stake in politics. The question is, maybe he will end up being perhaps the youngest member of the CAQ caucus come October 3rd, and especially, and what a major upset that would be to Dominique Anglade in her own riding. I don't see a way that she'd be able to forge a path forward as leader of the PLQ, especially.
No. You lose your riding. I mean, that's an indication.
That's a strong repudiation, not just from your base across the province, but from your people, but from the people that vote for you in the riding. That's huge.
The other one that I looked at is the riding of Maurice Richard, which is the old riding of Crémazie. That's where Marie Montpetit was elected. For those wondering, this is a riding that always flip-flop between PQ and Liberals at that time. The Liberals would have it for 1 or 2 mandates, then it would go to the PQ. Lisette Lapointe was there, who the wife of former Premier Jacques Parizeau. And then I believe it was in 2014. It was during that campaign when Marie Montpetit came in. She was ousted by the caucus. And I thought for sure that Québec Solidaire might make an entry there. But then a lot of people were suggesting that, it's going to go to the CAQ. I looked at it and the Québec Solidaire seems to be ahead over there.
It's pretty tight. Tight. They're within the margin of error. So it's 29-29 with a margin of error of 7%. So again, it's a fairly wide spread in that sense.
And the Liberals are in third, I believe, right?
Yeah, they're in third at 18%. So again, this was a Liberal riding. Marie Montpetit, now an independent. She was kicked out of caucus. And somebody who I'm very familiar with, Jonathan Marleau, former leader of the youth wing of the Quebec Liberal Party, somebody who has run in previous elections for the PLQ, wasn't successful, and I think was hoping to run in a riding where the PLQ could still hold on to. It doesn't seem like it's going to be the case. It is a two-way race between the CAQ and Québec Solidaire.
The thing that I found interesting, and we spoke about this, I think, in the earlier episodes, where we thought Québec Solidaire might lose the ridings it had around the region of Quebec. It seems as though Taschereau They're holding on to that one, but Jean Lesage is one that they may potentially lose. Also, Rouyn-Noranda up in North Quebec.
Right. Again, still within the margin of error for Jean Lesage, 34-33 split for CAQ and Quebec Solidaire. Coming in third right now, given the statistics that we have, would be the Conservative Party of Quebec, but they're way behind at 16%. Yeah. Again, very, very large margin of error of 7%. So again, things can fluctuate very quickly, and this is only giving you a very quick snapshot of the general understanding of where the polls are leading us nationally across, provincially, of course. So it's very hard to tell, but again, it's going to come down to these two-way races or these three-way races, depending.
And they may, and Quebec Solidaire may very well also be at risk in Sherbrooke. The old riding of Premier Jean Charest, who after losing the election in 2012, you had Éric Fortin. I think Éric Fortin. Was his name Éric Fortin?
Good question.
It was a Fortin. Right. He was a staff.
Luc Fortin. Luc. Or is it Eric Fortin? I was like, who's Eric Fortin? I know Luc Fortin.
Sorry about that. Yeah,
who was a former staffer, I remind you, George, for the Quebec Liberal Party.
Yeah. Luc Fortin, and then he lost it in the last election. It was a major gain for Quebec Solidaire, and now the CAQ put Caroline Saint-Hilaire, a major figure, former member of the Bloc Québécois, up in Ottawa, and she then became a very popular TV personality.
And she was, of course, mayor of Longueuil.
Mayor of Longueuil. I forgot about that one. Yeah. So she seems to be doing well there. You know, the interesting thing for me to see, you know, throughout the rest of this campaign is if whether or not Quebec Solidaire will go into this realm where they will forever, or maybe not forever, but for a while, battle the Liberal Party for the region of Montreal. Are they going to become both those parties, just regional parties for the greater Montreal, or maybe just for the Montreal area? That for me is something that's going to be interesting, because if Quebec Solidaire loses Sherbrooke, if they lose the ridings up in Quebec City, which Taschereau maybe not, but who knows, and they make certain gains in Montreal, then maybe that's what it's going to be maybe that's what we're going to come down to. Just, you know, have those two parties battling it out for Montreal.
Right. And I can tell you the answer for what they want, rather, not what will happen on October 3rd, because nobody can really predict that. But what they want, they want to be a province-wide party. No party wants to be based on one single region and sort of stuck there and not being able to expand. So them being able to retain the, you know, Jean Lesage, them being able to retain Sherbrooke, Rouyn-Noranda, that's going to be important for them to have in their war chest, and saying, look what we were able to do outside of the Montreal region. That's going to be big. Mm-hmm. George, there is one more riding that I wanted to point out. That's the riding of Marquette.
Marquette, yeah.
And the reason why I think it's so important is that this has been a Liberal riding for time immemorial. And I think it's important to note that this also has a very strong Anglophone population within Dorval, and also Lachine too. But essentially, it is the city of Dorval and the borough of Lachine that make up the riding of Marquette in itself. And right now, we're seeing a 34-34 tie. Again, wide margin of error, 7%. But this is not something that we would have fathomed a few elections ago, the CAQ being able to come onto some very Anglo-West Island territory. That, for me, is quite shocking. But there is a Francophone voter base there in Marquette, especially in Lachine, that is able to influence these types of elections, from these types of ridings that are these formerly stronghold PLQ, and make them pivot potentially towards the CAQ.
Interesting. There's a lot to follow, and let's just see if going into the third week we'll have more blunders, because in my experience that's the window where everything comes out. Thanks again for coming on, Michael, and for everyone listening, thank you so much. You can obviously follow and subscribe. We're on all platforms, whether it's audio or YouTube and Facebook. Send us some comments. If you have any questions, let us know. If there's anything you want us to answer, we'll be more than glad to do so. We'll see you again. What day is it? Thursday. So we'll see you Monday. Now I'm losing track.
Who are we? Why are we here? What's going on?
We'll see you guys on Monday. Michael, thanks, man. Have a good day.
Take it easy, George. See ya.
Yeah, bye-bye.